In the past few weeks, Governor Gretchen Whitmer has vetoed not one, not two, but 6 GOP-led voting bills. In an exclusive interview, I sat down with Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson on why she believes this legislation isn't actually in the name of voter security.
The Brennan Center for Justice at NYU Law says that despite no proof of widespread voter fraud in 2020, 19 states have enacted voting legislation that would make it more difficult to vote. The Michigan GOP is trying to become the 20th.
What we're seeing now is not a reaction to voter fraud in 2020. It's a reaction to high voter turnout in 2020.
Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson feels she has been fighting an uphill battle against the Republican-controlled Senate and House for years in the swing state. Due to the pandemic, voting by mail was allowed in the previous election. Benson says 5.5 million in the state voted, the highest amount of ballots returned ever. But with the state electing President Biden and Senator Gary Peters instead of Republican candidates, Benson says the GOP representatives are trying to regain their hold over the state. Since the last election, Republicans continue to push legislation that Democrats say is akin to voter suppression.
And so at the heart of this, it's about lying to citizens, changing the law to make policies that aren't popular.
She says the bills would make it much more difficult to vote, adding provisions like not letting someone without a government-issued ID vote and eliminating types of buildings people can vote in, like living facilities or apartments. Republican senators say that requiring voters to submit additional ID verification would help make the elections safer.
There were problems. There are causes for reforms. There's causes for reforms that have been suggested for decades.
Benson says that was never a problem because the elections are already safe. She says these bills would disproportionately impact voters who are Black, poor, young, immigrant, or rural. Benson says her GOP colleagues are trying to persuade the public that the previous election was not a true reflection of the will of the people.
That we're chasing lies, and then we're adding additional misleading factors on top of those lies to pass legislation or enact new policies to make it harder to vote.
She adds that education is one of the most important aspects of the jobs of those elected, and deliberately trying to cast doubt is a malicious way of trying to disenfranchise certain citizens.
Once again, we want to add that through local, state, and federal investigations and audits, there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud. My full interview with the secretary is already up on our website. You can check that out at WZZM13.com.